Thanks, Ari. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight, Anne and Joanne, celebrating Prostate Cancer Canada, and many of the great spirits in the room here have promoted the fact that you can actually have an influence in your health. And first of all, deep bow to all of you for being here. I wish that my uncle, who's now in his 80s, had attended a prostate cancer meeting, or specifically attended this talk. Starting in '96, he was diagnosed with a prostate cancer, had a prostatectomy, and then the cancer came back, and he had his salvage radiation 2003. Unfortunately, the cancer came back. He got started on hormone therapy. So that's 16 years since the radiation. Now he's into the kind of targeted therapy and so on. And I honestly believe if he had taken this talk to heart, he really could have extended his longevity and his quality of life. And the same for you guys, that you can actually have a powerful influence on your life and on your health and on your happiness. I really think that's possible for you. The science is there, and I want to try to prove that to you in some way or form. I want to start out with another story. One of my patients, he was 77 when he was diagnosed. He was still working in flower distribution, kind of wholesale distribution, and his PSA suddenly went up from about 5 to about 49. So a PSA, the blood test of 49, is very high, right? And they did a biopsy, and underneath the microscope, the cancer was a faster growing cancer. And so he had high-risk disease, is what they said. There was no obvious spread of his cancer elsewhere in his body. And so we were going for cure. And typically at that point, so that was whatever, 12 years ago, I said, Derek, we're going to start you on hormone treatments. What do hormone treatments do? They take the testosterone out of your system, cause a whole bunch of side effects. You get weaker, your bones can thin. There's a lot of things that can happen on hormone therapy. You better start exercising. You better start taking care of yourself and dieting and so on. And he was one of the smaller percentage of men that actually took me up on my advice. And so during his radiation treatment, so he got started on hormone treatments. During his radiation, the machines were running for a longer period of time. They were running from like 7 a.m. to like 6 p.m. So he would get the 7 a.m. radiation slot, get his radiation in, and then he would go to the gym, Dalhousie University gym, and he would lift his weights or whatever. And he said, he was like doing that like 3 times a week, and he's still working during this time. He said on the days that he worked out, he felt like he had more energy. He was thinking more clearly. He felt stronger, happier. Like the happy hormones were being released during his exercise. And then he actually, he kept doing well over the years, and he kept going to the same university gym. He now goes there 6 days a week, and he takes care of himself. He knows everybody. Like we actually took a picture. I'm going to show you a picture of him shortly. Took a picture of him, and we couldn't kind of get the picture time because everyone's like saying like, "Hi, Derek, how are you doing?" type thing. He go, that guy over there on the elliptical, he's like an Air Canada retired pilot, and that lady's over there, she's a prof, and she does the Tai Chi class that I go to. And so not only was he exercising, he was finding social connection, he was practicing Tai Chi, which actually allows the brain to rewire itself. He said there's 108 moves in Tai Chi, and so he had to memorize all this stuff. So he's pushing himself. Phenomenal. So that's the slide I want to show you right now. So there's Derek, age 87, lifting the weights. Yeah, agreed. Lifting the weights, and sharp too, right? His cognitive function is very, very, very good. You'll see on the left side of the screen is actually my wife, who's a prostate cancer researcher. And there's a whole other story, another whole other lecture about the patient empowerment program. We took 30 guys and we put them through a very intensive 28-day treatment. So all the guys had a prostate cancer diagnosis, and they had to do home-based exercise with elastic band and strength and aerobic. They had to do their Kegels, so kind of clenching of the muscles in the lower pelvis in order to help with urinary incontinence and sexual function and so on, 3 times a day. They had to do a meditation every day. I'm going to talk about the benefits of meditation as well. They had to call 2 of their buddies once per week. And then every day we sent them a message, an email, and a little video saying, guys, make sure you exercise, here's some dietary advice, take care of yourself, et cetera, et cetera. In 30 days, their mental health was better. 1 month, they actually did all these things and changed how they felt. From a scientific perspective, they were feeling better. So that's coming. I'm going to give you the kind of the background and what you should do to maximize your chances. That's what I'm going to do this evening from kind of a basic level. But there's data, there's scientific data coming that is going to show that you guys can actually have an influence on your outcome in the short and long term. Okay, so I want to give you context. First of all, I believe in something called integrative care, which is getting the best care from the medical system, right? Making sure, you're talking with your urologist, radiation oncologist, all those team members, making sure you're getting the best care there. And that's a 20-minute talk as to how to do that. And then what you can do to empower yourself, levels of body, mind, and spirit. And it's that combination of the two that really, gives you a chance. So I'm trying to integrate or give you the best way to go at this, at least in my opinion. And today we're probably going to focus mostly on body, in terms of physically how to be stronger, give yourself a better chance in the long term. But there's the mind level, the stress reduction level, and we just did a little taste of Qigong, which is a relaxation technique just before things started. And there's a spiritual perspective as well. We won't touch on that as much. But I want to say that those combinations together give you the best chances. What do you want? What do you want? You get a prostate cancer diagnosis and you want what? I said already, cure. And if cure is not in order, it's longevity. You want to live for a long time. What's the second thing that you want? Quality of life. Did I hear that? Sorry, what was the... Yeah, so quality of life. You want to feel better emotionally, not feel so stressed and upset and anxious. What else do you want maybe just as an older person? Generally speaking, what do you strive for? I'm going to say you want your noggin to work better, right? So you want to be able to think more clearly. You want to be able to function better, right? Do the things that you love to do. Enjoy the relationships in your life that you enjoy, right? And so the advice that I'm offering you actually can influence all those realms. So in addition to getting the best care possible from the medical system, if you want to feel happier and be stronger both physically and mentally, I would really take in heart what I'm about to offer you. Okay, so the next thing, I have a whole bunch of slides. I'm thinking you're interactive enough that I don't have to kind of go through every little slide. I think this can be more kind of conversational. Okay, so then the first idea is, how does prostate cancer develop? How do you get a prostate cancer? And the way I see it is that you have normal cells in your prostate gland, and then over the decades, and it literally takes decades, you get a number of hits or changes in those cells in order to turn into a cancer cell, right? And so that's why it is that it's the older men that get prostate cancer, because they've had the dozens of changes within the cancer cells, the genes and chromosomes that tell the cell what to do. They've had that change over time. So you go from normal cells to abnormal cells to cancer cells to faster growing cancer cells. And that's the kind of takeaway point here for you. You don't want a slow growing prostate cancer to turn into a fast growing prostate cancer, right? So you don't want to go from normal cells becoming cancer cells, but you don't want to go from slow growing cancer cells to fast growing cancer cells. You want to stop the damage from happening. You want to reverse the process. And what's become more clear is that there's an inflammatory processes that are happening within your body that are causing more damage to the cell. And if you can decrease the inflammation, you decrease the number of new hits to those cancer cells. So it's a very important idea. In the same way, heart disease, they thought, heart disease is all about cholesterol and clogging up your arteries, but it's actually inflammation that causes those irritations, that causes the narrowing. Same idea, you want to have less inflammation. mean, the other way just to think about it is the cancer cells grew in a certain soup, right? And so you want to change the soup to the healthiest possible soup so that you're not getting more dings or hits on those cancer cells, turning them from slow-growing cells to fast-growing cells. Okay, so how do you decrease the inflammation? How do you change the soup in a way that's beneficial for you and you're not getting a more aggressive cancer as the years go by? Because I told you the story of my uncle, right? My uncle's alive 22 years later. He had all those years, he had 2+ decades to have less inflammation and less hits and less changes of the cancer cells going from less aggressive to more aggressive. So how do you change your soup? What are the healthy habits that really have an influence on what those cells are seeing? What do you have control over? Diet, yeah. So why don't we go to diet next, even though I was going to go like, here guys, this is also anti-inflammatory. So the principle is, if you know that a certain lifestyle helps prevent prostate cancer, then you want to adopt that lifestyle. If you know that a certain lifestyle, like smoking for instance, increases your risk of prostate cancer, you want to stop that after you've had a cancer diagnosis, right? So that's the kind of big principle in this circumstance. Okay, so those are the goals. I've talked about integrated care. And I'm just going to flash very quickly. I know guys aren't going to read all this stuff. So the last two lines, what's good for preventing prostate cancer is good after diagnosis. What's known to cause prostate cancer or increase the risk should be avoided. There's growth and development. It went through the cells and different ways that cells can get turned on and so on. And this slide is this idea that you slowly going from normal cell over the decades, more damage, more damage, more damage, until you have cancer, more damage, more damage, more damage, you have a faster growing cancer. So that's the idea, trying to slow down that process. Risk factors, if you're a man, you're at risk, essentially is the takeaway there. And ethnicity. Okay, so good. So we got to the dietary part. So remember, the bad diet is causing more damage in the cells. You don't want that to happen. You want to stop the inflammation. You want to stop the damage from happening. And you do that through the healthy habits. So we know, for instance, red meat is a risk factor for prostate cancer. So we want to avoid the red meats after we get a cancer diagnosis. Fruits and vegetables. What are some of the other elements? You guys now tell me, what are some of the other elements of a healthy diet? Before I give you all the answers. Fiber, right? Why is fiber good? Couple things. I mean, it's good for your GI tract so you don't have the kind of toxic chemicals sitting against your mucosa all the time. Cleans you out. There's a whole, what they call microbiome. It's 100 trillion cells in your gut. It's the bacteria in your gut that's in relationship with your whole body. So there's a whole nother science now that you want to feed those bacteria because they're creating positive chemicals for you. They're breaking down the food that you're eating so you can absorb and so on. So you really want to take care of your gut. You know, in a single kind of McDonald's meal, you lose like 10,000 of types of bacteria. So part of it is that you want to feed your gut in a positive way. What are the other elements of a healthy diet? Fruits and vegetables. What else is there? Yeah, so not the red meat and the fish is better. Mostly plant-based. Water, healthy fluids. Healthy fats. It's no longer a low-fat diet. We're actually after a healthy fat diet, including avocado, kind of some of the omega-3s, the nuts. There's lots of, and what I would say to you is I can only just scratch the surface. What I'd always say to you is go talk with an expert. Go talk with somebody who can assess your diet, make some recommendations. This is a very powerful way to do things. How about what things to avoid in your diet? Sugar. Yeah, the sugary stuff, the processed stuff. And part of it is, if you ingest like the can of pop, you drink that can of pop, there's about that much pure sugar in it. What happens is the blood sugar spikes automatically. The body responds by trying to get the blood sugar down, so it releases insulin. And when it releases insulin, it's also releasing other growth factors, other kind of chemicals that prime the cells to grow. So you're priming cancer cell growth with too much sugary stuff. The other problem with the sugars is then your sugar tanks, it goes too low. And when your sugar's too low, you can't think as clearly. And you go from living out of the compassionate, wise brain to the irritable, stressed brain, right? So it's like, I need some food. So the sugary stuff causes the fluctuations that doesn't allow your brain to think more clearly. And that's why you want the complex carbohydrates, eating the proteins and the healthy fats with the meal so the sugar doesn't spike, and the healthy fiber, it's all part of it. And so it's the fruits and vegetables, a vegetable-based or plant-based diet that's the healthiest diet, and using the supplement, the meats and the fish and the white meat as protein supplements. Okay, so I also just want to point you towards the data. So the cruciferous vegetables, so essentially broccoli and cauliflower, is associated with less risky cancers, less cancers that are less likely to grow outside of the prostate gland. And you can also see here 14 servings of, compared with 28. 28 is only 4 per day. We actually should be aiming towards the kind of 7 or more veggies. I actually put veggies first, maybe a little bit of fruit at the end of that, but veggies first. How much of your plate, think of your plate as a clock, how much of your plate should be veggies? Half of it, right? Eat your veggies with every meal. Complex, multi-sourced foods. Tomatoes, good or bad? Yeah, it's probably good. It may be that mechanism, but it's not like the home run. But definitely tomatoes are good. Soy, good or bad? Good. And again, within boundaries, you don't want to kind of mega dose on your soy, but essentially the soy has some estrogen-like effect, so it's anti-testosterone, can kind of inhibit cancer cell growth by itself. But it's a healthy product. It's a kind of protein-based vegetable. Alcohol, good or bad? With your heart. Tell me with your heart, not your head. Anyways, yeah, so it's always balance. Guys that were drinking, I think it's the equivalent of 5 drinks per day, definitely had higher risk cancers. So alcohol is not good for a whole bunch of other reasons as well, including picking off like tens of thousands of brain cells if you're drinking more than a few glasses of wine type thing. So I'd say a couple times a week, a glass a night, with antioxidants is okay. Trans fats, bad. I just don't even have to explain that. Yeah. What advice do I have? Eat food, mostly plants, not too much. And the food, that's not food, right? Those are chemicals. Coffee, good or bad? Yeah, again, within balance, again, you're saying you have to drink a lot of coffee, and it's probably the antioxidants. The antioxidants mop up those damaging chemicals. So you have those chemicals, the inflammatory chemicals in your bloodstream. You're eating your fruits and vegetables. It kind of mops up the damaging stuff, so you don't get the damage in the cells. You don't turn a slow-growing cancer into a fast-growing cancer, is the kind of trick there. Smoking, definitely bad, right? All those kind of toxins are hitting the cells and causing more damage. Supplements. Tell me, what do you need to take? You Canadians, you? Yeah, how much? 1,000. Yeah, 1,000 to 2,000 is probably the most frequent. You know what I've been reading about and listening to the YouTube talk around that recently? You probably need to go to your family doctor and have your vitamin D levels assessed, because you might need more than 1,000 to 2,000 in order to get yourself up to a reasonable range. And it's now been proven vitamin D helps with brain function, actually multiple other functions beyond keeping your bones strong. There's also an anti kind of cancer effect or proliferative effect with vitamin D. But it's the one I would say you definitely need, along with some calcium for your bones. And everybody should be doing this. Where's your vitamin D bottle? Ours is right on the kitchen counter right now, so I'm seeing it first thing. I used to have it right beside in my bathroom, right beside my sink. So first thing in the morning, I would see it, pop my 1 or 2 pills, 1,000 or 2,000, and away I went. So that's definitely needed. Omega-3. Now, this one hurts because I actually like fish a lot, and I still think fish is healthy, but it seems that there might be an increased risk slightly of high-grade cancers in prostate. But it's the ratio of the kind of healthy to the unhealthy that probably matters. How about folic acid and zinc? Bad. Don't take the supplements. Risk doubles. It's probably why you don't want to have too much going there. Selenium, vitamin E. Oh, we used to hear this. This is really, really good. No protective effect. Again, the big meta studies didn't show a difference. So multivitamins. We're saying probably you probably don't need it. There's some controversy around that. I really think you need to go see a specialist. Go see a nutritionist. Get the assessment. Get the latest science. Do your research. Okay, so exercise. Okay, before I go there, I want to hear a couple of tips from you that allow you to give yourself a good diet. What are some ways that you plan your week such that you're more likely to eat better? Say again? Any suggestions? Never eat when you're not hungry, yeah. So, I mean, this fasting's become very interesting as well. So we're allowing ourselves to actually get to the hungry level before we eat again. For my mind, it's okay to listen to your body and figure out what works for you. Some people may want to fast a little bit more and only eat during 8 to 10 hours a day. But I think, the small meals every 2 to 3 hours waiting for yourself to be hungry. How about some tips around shopping? What are some shopping tips? Yeah, so side rows because you're getting all the healthy product, right? So eat food to start out with, mostly plants. How about this one? Don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry. Because I'm like going down that shopping aisle. It's the cookies are suddenly looking really good. And I figured I don't eat cookies if they're not in my house. Like at 10:30 at night when I want a snack and there's no cookies there, it's really hard for me to eat them. The other one is because I've been talking about this kind of the limbic part of your brain. The limbic part of your brain wants to quickly satisfy itself. And so if you have cookies or that type of stuff on the counter, you will eat that cookie before you can actually think about it because it's the more primitive part of your brain that's doing that. So if you have the unhealthy stuffs, make sure it's not visible to your eye, and in fact, put it up in an inconvenient cupboard, and it really kind of decreases. There's good science on that idea. Okay. Exercise. Can I get you guys to stand up as you're able again? And I want you, just to the degree that feels good for you, to do kind of tiny squats on the spot. How many minutes a week do you need to exercise? 150. How hard? Moderate, yeah, so slightly shorter breath. What else do you need to integrate in your exercise program? Good, you got it. Jesus, smart crowd. Strength, I'll tell you. So sad. You guys can sit down. Resistance training, strength training. Yeah, what you were just doing, actually. So twice per week, 8 to 10 muscle groups, right? When you guys were doing this, your quads and glutes and all that stuff was being engaged. So it's 8 to 10 muscle groups, 2 sets of 8 to 10 reps. So I just feel like my friend Derek there, when you're doing that, you're getting more strength and you're releasing the happy hormones and you're actually pushing some more blood through your brain. Okay, so what are some tricks that allow you to actually exercise? climb the stairs, so you integrate that instead of taking the elevator, those little extra things. What else maximizes your chance of actually exercising?
Do something that you like to do.
Bingo. So do something you like to do. Make it fun. And I'd also say make it social, right? So you're kind of, you and your buddy have this like walking program. You and your buddy go to the gym or whatever. It's like, I don't really want to go today, but I should go for him, right? And he's like, I don't want to really go today, but I should go for him. The social kind of support of it. Like Derek, he's got his community there as well, right? Yeah. Any other tip? Integrate it part of your day. Schedule it. Okay. All those things, right? I can't emphasize enough. I mean, you release brain-derived growth factor when you exercise, which allows your brain to learn and remember and get stronger. And there's something called neuroplasticity. Essentially, your brain continues to develop and grow and shape itself throughout your lifetime till the day you die. It's the organ that shapes itself. It's the organ that changes itself. And whatever you practice, your brain gets better at. So practice being more centered, calm, clear thinking, and you'll get better and better at that. Practice being flustered, upset, scared, angry, and you get better at that. It's as simple as that. You can actually influence your outcome in terms of your brain function. What else influences brain function in your kind of happiness levels? This is a little bit aside from prostate cancer. What allows your brain to function best? Or when you don't get enough of it, your brain definitely doesn't. Sleep, right. So there's a whole science of sleep hygiene. If you suffer from insomnia, there are now like scientific protocols that allow people to actually get back on track. There's cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia. I won't go through it, but there's some things like getting up at exactly the same time every day, getting some bright light for the first half an hour of your waking time, and that resets your circadian rhythm. What else can you do to promote a good night's sleep? Because you can't force a good night's sleep. You can maximize the chance that you do get into a deeper sleep where you sleep for a longer period of time. What sorts of things do you do to make that happen? Dark room that's cooler, like 68 degrees. I put on eye patches, especially during the summer, so it stays dark throughout the night and the early morning light doesn't awaken me. What else do you do? Agreed. So it's the avoidance stuff. Really, that the screen, the TV, the computer, the laptop, all that stuff gives you the blue light that stimulates your brain. Yes, you can change the setting and so on and that stuff, but really hour and a half minimum, turn off that stimulant. You can read a paper book during that time. What else do you avoid? Go ahead.
Don't eat too late.
Yeah, don't eat too late, don't exercise too late, don't watch horror films too late, that type of idea. I really say social media also kind of winds us up, or emails wind us up. And so the idea is dimmer, slower, quieter as you get close to that time. Don't worry about being awake at night. It seems that doesn't matter as much as you think, and it doesn't really suppress your immune function, really doesn't influence prostate cancer. So I would just say be kind to yourself in the middle of the night, practice a relaxation technique, and stay in the dark. 90 seconds of bright light in the middle of the night suppresses melatonin and the other healthy hormones that are released during a good night's sleep. So you want to do the kind of Helen Keller move to the bathroom, when you wake up and need to go to the bathroom. It's important. Napping, good or bad? It's good. I mean, again, it's each person specific. What are the conditions and what are the limits in terms of when to nap and all that stuff? Yeah, before 5 p.m. It can be shorter. I'm a professional napper. I'm very good at it now. Just don't tell my boss. So I just work later in the day type thing. But there is some data that shows that your brain is able to learn and grow, specifically like motor activities and so on after napping. So I really do endorse that.
How long is it?
For me, so each person's different. I'm thinking 15 to 20 minutes is a good time. I just need like a few moments of REM when I'm off, like something strange happens in my mind. It's almost as if something shuts down. There's really good science now around sleep and this idea that our brains actually shrink a little bit, which allows the kind of fluids around the cells to kind of get flushed out. And within that is the kind of the toxins that are building up. And that's why there's increasing sleep pressure the longer you stay awake, is because those toxins are giving the message to go for a good nap or a good sleep at that point. So there's really good science around how the flushing happens as you allow yourself to sleep. So sleep's important. What else can you do to kind of influence your health overall? So we've talked about exercise, diet extremely important, talked about sleep. If you do those first two things, diet and exercise, what influences the third thing? Or what's the third thing?
Eliminate this type of stress.
Yeah, so the stress is important, which actually going to kind of go into my fifth side, and it also starts to go into the mind level. But I was thinking of maintaining a reasonable weight, right? Again, if you're carrying too much weight, it changes the hormonal changes in your body, which causes pro-inflammation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's it. And around the stress, what is the fifth activity that you guys can do that actually influences how your brain works? Anything you can guys think of? Meditation. Yeah. Actually, why don't we stand up again as you're able? Let's just do just a little bit more Qigong. So meditation does not have to be like this, right? It can be actually like this, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Bring your attention to your body right now. Breathing in, breathing out. Focus on the long, smooth out breath. And one more. Do you feel like your stressometer is at a lower level right now? Mm-hmm. Even like, you just change your biochemistry in like 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Thanks, guys. You can have a sit. So we know from the scientific part of it, when you practice meditation, you're actually strengthening, you're creating new connections in your left prefrontal lobe. That's associated with mood, creativity, kind of resetting the stress system, resetting your stressometer to a lower level. I mean, I can't say it changes prostate cancer, but you will definitely feel happier. And I actually think some decade will be able to prove that you practice those stress reduction techniques, decrease the inflammation within your system, you'll actually have less damage and do better. In the meantime, I can say you will be happier and have more energy. There's a lot of good data around that. And I also just want to share with you my own meditation experience, just to kind of demystify it. So I've been meditating for 20 plus years now. It's now a we, but I used to go downstairs and I would kneel on my little yoga mat and focus my attention on my breathing. And within about 3 seconds of starting that, I'd be thinking about what I needed to do that day. You know, I'm going to my brain tumor clinic. I got to catch a flight. It's a big windstorm today in Halifax. Will the flight go? And at some point in time, I recognize I'm actually not even concentrating on my breath, and I bring my attention back to breathing. And then I'm off thinking about what happened yesterday, and my boss, brought me in. We had a conversation about protons for pediatrics, and that was kind of a cool conversation. And at some point in time, I recognize I'm thinking about the past, bring my attention back, and I'm off again. And this is like a couple dozen times. And this is 20 years later, right? So I've been meditating 20 years, 20 minutes a day for a long time. The same process happens almost every day. Most days I get this kind of more relaxed, centered, clear feeling. What I can say for certain is the days that I meditate, I just feel like I'm living and working out of my frontal lobe. I'm more caring, more compassionate. I'm more clear thinking. I'm more efficient because I'm doing one thing at a time and actually focusing my attention on what's happening. And I recognized that as the years went by, I was actually kind of like meditating throughout the day. I'd be talking with somebody, and then I'd start to think what I need to do after work or that type of thing. And I recognize I'm actually not even paying attention to that person, and I bring my attention back into the conversation again. So it's the muscle of bringing your attention back, right? It's the whole process, not just the moments of clarity. It's the whole capacity to be able to watch ourselves, be mindful of what's actually happening in our minds and within our bodies and so on. So I tell you that just because it's a powerful way to influence your health, and I really kind of recommend it for you. Okay, so can you make a difference though? Is there scientific proof that by doing these things you can actually influence your prostate cancer outcomes? And there is some data there, and I'm just maybe come out of there. Oh yeah, let's see what we got going. Exercise, side effects of hormone therapy, exercise, sleep. Okay, this is just the story of, even when your cancer comes back, the idea is that you can do well for like a decade. The cancer comes back, you get started on treatment. Usually we're watching for a while, then we get started on hormone treatments. You last for another 8 to 10 years, and then you're on to targeted therapy, et cetera, et cetera. You got a lot of time to actually influence your health is really the kind of takeaway from all that. I won't give you the whole story there. Okay, here it is. Here's a very interesting study. So this was done by Dean Ornish. He's a UCLA cardiologist. He was the one to actually first try to help document the fact that heart disease can be reversible, right? So even though there's a clogging of the artery, there's a narrowing of the artery, if the people take care of themselves well enough, it's almost as if it can open up again in some sense. And so he applied the same types of principles to guys that had a prostate cancer diagnosis. So here's the study. So there's something called active surveillance. And so active surveillance is this idea that you get a prostate cancer diagnosis, but you decide you're not going to have the big surgery or the big radiation right away. You're going to see what's going to happen, and then if it looks as though the cancer's starting to grow or get worse, then that's the point where you jump in and get the big treatment. So he had typical older men. They were all in the kind of slower growing category. So the Gleason score is saying it's slow growing cancer. The PSA levels, which is the blood test 4 to 10, says it's not very, not much PSA, which is a measure of how much cancer it is. And lastly, it wasn't obvious the cancer had broken beyond the capsule of the prostate gland. So this is low growing. So 93 of these guys agreed to either undergo lifestyle changes or do the usual thing, and they were going to be followed every 3 months. And then the guys in the experimental con, when I got the full meal deal, so they had a more vegetarian diet, they did their exercise, so that's the kind of 150 minutes a day, and then stress reduction. So I was teaching you guys a little bit of the breathing techniques. I talked about meditation, and they joined a support group, right? So again, that kind of social connection, the fact you guys are here is great. And just to give you some ideas, they're really trying to get more protein from the healthy stuff, the healthy fats. That's the days when they thought selenium and vitamin E were helpful. But it was basically a fruits and vegetables type of diet. Those were the days where it was like, quotes, low fat. I won't say low fat anymore, I say healthy fat is really important. And what they did is they measured the PSA blood test at the start of the trial, then every 3 months for a year. And then the men and the physicians would decide whether or not they needed to go on to have the treatment, if their PSA went up or they got too anxious, et cetera, et cetera. During that time, the people that weren't on the experimental arm, their PSA actually rise by 6% at 1 year. And that would be typical, right? There's a cancer there, it's going to slowly grow, the PSA is going to go up. In the meantime, the guys that are really taking care of themselves, on average, their PSA went down by 4%. And what that's saying is that there's a real difference, or there seems to be a real difference between those two sides. Only 3 treated in the control group but none of the experimental guys had PSAs up beyond 10. What's more important was the intervention rate. Did it change the number of guys having the big surgeries, the big radiation? So 13 out of 49 of the control guys and 2 out of 43 of the intervention guys had the big surgery or the radiotherapy. So again, it seems like we can definitely delay the onset of treatment by doing these things. No difference in anything else. No deaths occurred during that short time period. Now, there was a second experiment that is really interesting. So serum is basically the water in your blood. They took the water of the blood, or the stuff that's not the cells in the blood, and they put it in a test tube with cancer cells. And the guys that were on the experimental arm were able to suppress the cancer cells 70% of the time. The guys that did it themselves, only 9% of the time could suppress cancer cells in the test tube. So it's an experiment. So again, it's the soup in which the cancer cells are growing were changed by their lifestyle habits. What this says is the more the guys did the program, the greater the adherence, the more their serum inhibited the cancer cell growth. So the keener you are, the more you can have an influence there. And then lastly, the kind of follow-up, the telomeres, think of like my shoes and kind of the shoelaces, and the kind of, at the end of the shoelace is the little plastic bit. That would be like the telomere of the chromosome, which is, it's good to have. The longer the telomeres, the better. People who are like caregivers to Alzheimer's folks, i.e. a lot of stress, they kind of eat away. The more stress you have, the more you eat away at your chromosomes. And so blood samples from these guys, 10 in the intervention group, 25 in the control group, showed that the telomere length was longer in the guys that did this. And then lastly, I went back to this idea of relaxation and meditation, really improving a lot of different things. So I'm going to finish off this kind of first part of the talk before we go into break and Q&A. It's thinking about, well, how is it that it's possible that you can influence your outcome? How can you give yourself more longevity or increased chance of cure? How is it that you can feel better? So inflammation, decreasing inflammation causes less damage. I'm not so sure it happens as much in prostate cancer, but when we're really stressed, our immune function doesn't work well. When we're more relaxed, our immune function comes up, and the immune cells can fight off cancer. So it's another possible mechanism. There's something kind of more metaphysical, meaning I can't prove this to you, but the idea is that we each have a kind of healing potential, and our attitudes, our beliefs have an influence on how our body responds to that. And lastly, we're just at such an early point in the science of saying what we believe and how we take care of ourselves sends a survival signal to our body. So when you exercise, you're saying to yourself, I want to live, I want to be part of the tribe, I want to contribute there. Takeaway, this is what I think you guys should be doing. Exercise every day, including strength training twice per week. Go see an expert, but definitely take your vitamin D. Maintain a reasonable weight, get a good night's sleep, practice relaxation technique. And so far, I've only just scratched the surface. So far, this is just very mechanical body level, but there are levels of kind of stress reduction, spirituality, reframing that can have a powerful influence on these other factors. But I'll keep it at the more superficial level at this level of the talk. Do me a favor, I missed the first flight because they didn't fly, actually. Air Canada shut down, and so I booked a very expensive second flight to make sure I was with you guys tonight. So you can do me a favor, buy a book, The Healing Circle. It's $20, but if you want to buy it for $50 or $100, I'm not going to complain. It's for our charity, and we can offer a tax incentive, a charitable tax receipt. So the Healing Circle, it's essentially the teachings of an entire weekend retreat, so kind of body, mind, and spirit, quite applicable to the prostate cancer journey. And then every second chapter is a story of somebody who's attended the retreat. Very, very, very good reviews of our book there. We also have a DVD, a 3-track DVD, Qigong, which is what we did, some meditation and yoga. And lastly, you can go to our website, healingandcancer.org, and we actually have a 9-part video series specifically for prostate cancer that goes through the kind of mind body. There's meditation, there's yoga, et cetera, et cetera. The Qigong video has now been viewed 100,000 times, and the yoga for prostate cancer has actually been viewed 50,000 times. So I'm pretty sure it's kind of popular internationally with the prostate cancer guys. So healingandcancer.org. And lastly, I would just plug this. Guys, we need to organize something for the GTA and the prostate cancer world. We've now offered 5 different day-long seminars: connection, intimacy, healthy sexuality for men and partners after prostate cancer. Incredibly well received. This should happen in Toronto, so I'm really hoping through my coming here today that we've organized something for 2020. We've got volunteers that are going to help us, and please contribute to making this happen. So, oops. I think that's it. I think I'll end there and just thank you for your attention. And Ari, it sounds like we're going to have a break next for 10-15 minutes, and we'll do the Q&A section after that. So thanks, everybody. Well done.